Hello everyone, welcome to our April monthly Strengthening Families webinar. Today we're going to hear about Journey to Vitality, a new cafe series coming out from Be Strong Families. So we're very excited that so many people were interested in this topic and wanted to hear about this today. We'll have an hour together. We'll start out with some updates from my organization, the Center for the Study of Social Policy. And we'll have some updates from the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds, which I'll also be sharing today. I'll explain why. And then the bulk of our time will be focused on the Journey to Vitality. And we have Melissa Neely from Be Strong Families and Beth Lakier from the Strengthening Families Illinois leadership team to talk about that new cafe series and how it connects with Parent Cafés and Strengthening Families. So we're very excited, and let's jump in to our topic. I'll be sharing some updates from CSSP, as I said. I want to say a little bit about these Strengthening Families networking webinars. We do these the second Thursday of each month. It's an open invitation that anyone is welcome to join. We advertise it to those who are using the Protective Factors Framework and coordinating Strengthening Families efforts, whether that's for a state or a community or a program. We convene these jointly between CSSP and the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds. And each month we have a specific topic, usually with a guest speaker, sometimes with a panel of folks from the network, and we coordinate that between myself, the Alliance, or a volunteer from the network. So anyone is welcome to suggest a topic or volunteer some work that you'd like to share on an upcoming webinar. And the other thing to know is if you miss one, or if you ever want to look back at the archives, all the recordings and materials from past webinars are posted on a Google site that the Alliance maintains. And you can check there for a webinar you've missed, or search for a topic that you know we did one on at some point and you couldn't remember exactly. You can actually download the slides, any handouts that were shared, and the recording itself. So let's look ahead. Our next webinar will be on May 10th, and we're going to hear from my colleague Steve Cohen about 3 science-based principles to improve outcomes for children and families. That's a paper that the Harvard Center on the Developing Child put out earlier this year, or maybe late last year. And Steve's going to talk about the basics of those 3 science-based principles, but also about how it connects with Strengthening Families. And if you have read that paper and have some thoughts to share about it, let me know. We'd love to have some people planning to be respondents, not quite a panel, but sharing your thoughts or how you think it applies in your own work. So take a look at the paper, or maybe you already have, and if you'd like to chime in on that webinar, let me know and we'll get you set up for that. I already said you can always contact me to suggest a topic or speaker, or share some, or let me know there's something you'd like to share on a future webinar. We're usually scheduling them like 3 months out, so if you let me know you're interested, I can tell you what month we're aiming for, and you can pick a month beyond that. So a couple other announcements from CSSP. We and the Alliance are both co-sponsors of the annual National Family Support Network Forum, which is coming up next month in Washington, D.C. It's a great chance to learn about family support and what family support and strengthening networks are doing around the country. And you can register now at that link. We are also excited to work with the National Family Support Network. We've just begun planning for an October conference, we don't know the name yet, that will be an exciting chance to bring together family support and Strengthening Families folks. So keep an ear out for that as well. CSSP has a survey out right now looking for promising initiatives that focus on supporting social emotional development of young children in pediatrics. So if you're aware of an initiative in your community, or if you're implementing something yourself, we would love to hear from you. You can nominate an initiative, or you can complete a survey about your own. And there's a link here with more information, and the deadline is April 19th. If you are interested in completing that survey and you can't quite capture this whole link, you can go to the front page of our website, cssp.org, and I believe there'd be a link right there. Or if you can't find that, just let me know. We'd love to hear from people so that we can get a sense of all the different things going on. We know it's sort of a hot topic right now of finding ways to use pediatric visits as a way to do more than just focus on physical health of children. And so we want to hear what you guys are already doing. Another new resource from CSSP is about addressing, or a set of resources actually, is about addressing the sexual and reproductive health needs of youth in out-of-home care. We know that's a vulnerable population where teen pregnancy and teen fatherhood are very common, and where young people are often just not getting the support and information they need around their sexual and reproductive health. So there's a policy and practice framework. There's a guide for caseworkers and a guide for youth about their rights and how they can get the information and resources they need. So please check that out if you work in a child welfare system or with people in the child welfare system. It's a valuable resource to share. All right, now I'm going to share the updates from our partners at the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds. Martha and Teresa are both, along with some of the rest of their team, are at a training in Yakima, Washington this week. It's the first time they've done a bilingual training of trainers for the Bringing the Protective Factors Framework to Life in Your Work curriculum, and that is very exciting. So here's a photo from yesterday from their bilingual training group in action. And they wanted to share that the Spanish materials are now accessible for all the people who have already gone through their training of trainers. All 7 courses have the PowerPoint, video content with Spanish captioning, participant handout materials and posters, and the additional training tools, all in Spanish. And I think it's important to note that they're not just straight translations into Spanish, but really interpretations of the content and the activities redesigned in a way that works in the Spanish language. So I'm very excited that that's out there, and I hope a lot of people will take advantage of it. If you've got some trainers in your state, but you don't yet have Spanish training capacity, this is a great opportunity to find a trainer who could do that and get them trained in it. Or if you have some trainers who were certified in the English course but also speak Spanish, that's even easier. They can just start using it. Another new resource from the Alliance is about preventing child neglect. So this is an online training that you can look at on their website now. It's about preventing child neglect and how we all can make a difference. It includes some discussion toolkits that have learning objectives, learning tools, resources from the Alliance website, and then ways to use the training in different contexts. So it looks like it can be used individually or in groups or facilitated for a larger group. And one more resource, so you can actually also download this within the webinar on the handouts panel. The Alliance's National Parent Partnership Council has been developing this series of infographics called Need to Know, each one focusing on one of the protective factors. So this one, the newest, focuses on knowledge of parenting and child development. It includes the definition of the protective factor, the everyday actions that people can take to build that protective factor, and concrete examples of what those everyday actions look like, gathered from parents across the country. The resilience and social connections ones are already available on the website, and you can download the knowledge one here within the webinar or from the Alliance's website. Oh, and there's the address, ctfalliance.org/needtoknow.htm. If you need more information about any of these updates that I shared on Martha's behalf, you can contact her, and she will be happy to answer your question. Okay, with that, we are getting into our main content for the day. We're going to hear from Melissa Neely and Beth Lakier, both from Strengthening Families Illinois, although Melissa's actually in Kansas City now. So I'm going to hand it off to them to share their exciting work around cafes and this new cafe series.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kailen. This is Melissa Neely. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today to talk about our exciting venture of Vitality Cafés. I am currently the Midwest, since I've relocated, I'm the Midwest co-lead for our Midwest fee-for-service work, as well as one of our senior trainers, and I provide TA for a lot of our agencies. I am also, some may have known me as being one of the co-authors of the Get Real Guide. We had 2 Get Real Guides. One was the Get Real Guide to Getting Your Kids Back, and another one was the Get Real Guide to Keeping Your Kids at Home. And I was one of the co-authors in the one for Keeping Your Kids at home. And I will lend it over to Beth to introduce herself now.
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. I'm Beth Laker, and I'm currently working with Be Strong Families to develop a corporate wellness program that's very much built on the concept of journey to vitality. Over the past probably 10 years, I've been working with Strengthening Families and now Be Strong Families to really implement the protective factors in child development programs in Illinois. So it's very much my passion. My other passion has really been making sure that children and families and staff are healthy. And at One Hope United, I developed a healthy lifestyles curriculum that really focused on bringing holistic health to the children, families, and the staff that we were working with. So this really wraps all my passions into one. I'm really excited about the journey to vitality and super excited to be able to share it with you.
Thank you, Beth. As she said, we've been strengthening families. We were that way for a long time, and that also kind of segues into this next slide and talking about where did Parent Cafés come from. So back in 1995, some educators and businessmen came together to talk about some things, and they had to do some spontaneous changing of the venue because of weather. And then they kind of thought about how they could get the task at hand done and sit at little tables and having conversations and writing their notes on these makeshift tablecloths. And that is where World Cafés came out of. And then the Parent Cafés are modeled after the World Cafe model. In 2001, of course, here with the Center for the Study of Policy is where the protective factors first came out of in 2001. A lot of you remember them as being the 5 protective factors, which was a strengthening families model. And the first, we were the first Strengthening Families Illinois site, and we were that site for many, many years until in 2012 we morphed and formed our own nonprofit organization, which is called Be Strong Families, which we still are the home of Strengthening Families Illinois, and we were known back then for the cafes. When they first talked about these protective factors, and the icons you see on the slide kind of demonstrate all of the icons for the protective factors, the parents were like, we understand what you're saying, so you have information to give us. This is what's one of our parents, Jeffrey Scott. You have information to give us. Give it to us directly. Don't just give it to the professionals. Give it to us directly and don't dumb it down. So he was very adamant about that. We use that quote often. And so then we thought about the Parent Cafés to be able to help parents understand and embed the protective factors. In our cafes, as you'll see on our next slide, the reason we do Parent Cafés, there's always 3 reasons. And that reason is to embed the protective factors. It also is to increase peer-to-peer learning, and also so that people, parents, or whomever attend the cafes can actually start doing their own deep self-reflection. So every cafe, whether it's a Vitality Cafe, a Parent Cafe, or a Dad's Cafe, has those components of the deep self-reflection, peer-to-peer learning, and to embed the protective factors. We did our first cafe at Strengthening Families Illinois in 2007. And we've been doing cafes ever since. And cafes has really been a thing that we have really embraced and loved and shared throughout the world. And you see more about that as we morph into our next slide. I also want to note at the bottom of the slide, you will see Be Strong Families' new logo, which we just changed. And then we'll talk more about the Journey to Vitality, which is one of our new initiatives. So this slide you're seeing now about the national impact of Parent Cafés. All of the cities that you see that are in the pretty fuchsia are the places where we have actually done cafes, which shows, you know, the national impact. So in these These numbers were put together last year. So since 2014, we've been talking about cafes since that long. So we've done over 100,000, I'm sorry, cafes nationwide, which we see, as you see on the map, has impacted over 20 states. A lot of people have been impacted by cafes. So much so in our community, people say, you are the guys that do the cafes. And absolutely, we are the people that do the cafes. And we've been doing cafes for the longest, and we still continue to do those cafes. So when I talked about the 5 protective factors, this little model that says Parent Cafe in a Box, this is a model of what our Parent Cafe in a Box cards look like. Each card has a question that pertains to one of those protective factors. And they're all color-coded. Like I said earlier, they match the icon. And there are about 35 cards in each of our Parent Cafe in a Box deck. And each of these questions was thought of and given to us by parents. So basically, it's a Parent Cafe in a Box deck of cards that was created for parents by parents. They helped us think about how these protective factors impact them and what questions they thought would be good cafe conversation questions that would really help them learn. And so why do we do parent cafes, right? They're all of our cafes on the principles of adult learning, right, which is the relevancy, the practical, and it's respectful. They're all trauma-informed. They have the power to generate great conversations, and because they're based on the principles of adult learning, it does, I think, organically involve leadership, right? That leadership does happen when parents can sit at a table and learn from each other and figure out that, wow, I can figure out how to get, my issue, my challenge, my opportunity solved because I've heard other people in my community, and I'm thinking of the cafe as a community. I can get that answered because I came to a cafe. An example was one of the parents came to a cafe and was saying she had a new job and she needed child care. Another parent came to that same cafe and was sharing that she had got licensed to do her own in-home daycare. And she had gone through all of the paperwork and it was approved. And those two parents ended up connecting in that cafe and, became friends and being able to share resources with each other. And they happened to run into each other at a cafe. So cafes really have been having life-changing impact for the people that actually come to the cafes. And so people are empowered. They feel empowered as opposed to bringing someone to a meeting or a space or a cafe and saying, we have the answer, here's the solution. The parents kind of come on their own and they feel empowered. So there's a difference between feeling empowered and feeling like someone's giving you the answer. And that's why the cafes, we feel, has been so much, so very successful. A strong family is a healthy family. I'm getting ready to segue and give it over to Beth. And I want to also just kind of reiterate this one point about the protective factors really help us to, at the end of it, have healthy families. And so now we can segue into the vitality piece. So I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter, Beth. Take it away, Beth.
Thanks, Melissa. So if we look at the beginning of the Vitality Cafe piece, you can see that the Vitality Cafes really were based on a very similar format as what we did the Parent Cafes on. And so the big difference was what we did was focus on a journey to holistic health using the support of others. So, the Parent Cafes were very much focused on everyone supporting each other and very similar in the Vitality Cafes. Instead of the protective factors, the Vitality Cafes are based on the 6 domains of vitality. And what is really great and unique about the 6 domains of vitality is that often when people talk about wellness, they talk about exercise and nutrition and losing weight, and that's the concept that wellness has a lot of times in today's world. What the 6 domains do is really spread that concept and make it more relevant to a lot of people, because we know that wellness goes way beyond just exercise and nutrition. There's so much more to it. So when you look at the different domains, and we have 6 domains, we have the physical vitality domain, which is the first one, and that's the health and well-being of your body. And so as each person in a cafe thinks about, the different domains, we also encourage them to think about how they can set goals around those domains. So for instance, for physical vitality, you might consider goals related to changes in nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mindfulness. The second domain that we look at is mental vitality, right? The health and well-being of your mind. So you could be physically fit and eat right, but if the health and well-being of your mind isn't there, then I would say that holistically, you're not in a good place for wellness. And goals to consider related to that could be relaxation, meditation, therapy, education, and travel. Next one is spiritual vitality. And spiritual vitality really talks about feeling completely alive and full of positive energy. And these goals are related to creative pursuits or activities that cultivate spiritual virtues, such as hope, love, faith, and kindness. Then you look at environmental vitality. How has your surroundings influenced your well-being? And you could look at goals as recycling or environmental advocacy, or goals related to decluttering the places you spend a lot of time at. And then lastly, financial vitality. Once again, a domain that often is not looked at in wellness programs. And this is having the capacity to meet your needs in the material world. And here we consider goals related to savings, career plans, financial education, budgeting, or shifts in attitudes about money. So once again, the key to the Vitality Cafés and the 6 domains is really looking at, wow, what do we see as all leading to overall holistic wellness, and what are the different components that people can choose to work on that will help them get their journey to that place.
And
so,
Beth,
like I said, yes?
Beth, I think you actually skipped over social vitality.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Yeah, the icons came in the wrong order, so I think you just missed it.
No, not a problem. So social vitality, that's the most fun one, right? How silly of me to skip over it. It's your support system and the joy that friends and family add to your life. And these goals are related to ensuring that the people around you support and affirm the vital person you want to be. And so, once again, social vitality is something that's not often looked at, but a really important aspect of everybody's holistic wellness as well. So as I talked about before, the domains and Journey to Vitality is very much based off of the concept of the Parent Cafés. And so what was really important is to be able to connect the domains and the different vitalities to our protective factors, right? And so we wanted to make sure there was still that connection so that it continued to provide that sense of holistic health, total family health and wellness. And I'm not going to read through all of these because everybody is able to read through them, but I thought I'd pick a couple examples and just show how it's related. So for instance, the mental and emotional vitality, which is the health and well-being of your mind. If you think of the protective factor resilience, how do you handle anger so it doesn't make situations worse? Like that would be a question that might be in the Parent Café that talks about mental emotional vitality. So it's making that connection between this vitality as well as the protective factor resilience. A relationship type question might ask, what crazy things have you done in the name of love, and how did that work out? A knowledge question could be, what important lessons have you learned about emotional vitality? A support question, how are you involved in continuing education? And a community question could be, how do you keep from passing on your fears to your children? So these all are questions that really show up both in the vitality domains as well as the protective factors. I thought I'd also go over the social vitality example, the one that I missed on the first page. We'll make sure we hit it now. And like I said, social vitality is about your support system and the joy that friends and family can add to your life. And so that very much factors into the protective factors as well. So a resilience-related question might be, when or why do you hide your true feelings or your true self? A relationship question could be, what and where have you learned about how to build healthy relationships? A knowledge question related to, what are you teaching your children about making and keeping friends? Support, what organizations assist you with building your social vitality? And then related to communication, how do your children contribute to your vitality? So like I said, really making those connections is really important. We really see that the Vitality Cafés really support the purpose and the goals of the Parent Cafés, and there's a very integral connection between the two of them. So one of the things that we began thinking about at Be Strong Families is, how can we take these cafes to a very different place? And what are some things that we can do to extend the journey? So it's great to do a Journey to Vitality Cafe, and you're in a cafe for, 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending, and really discuss Journey to Vitality. You can set goals based on the domain, but then it kind of ends a little bit. And it's really up to the individual and maybe some friends they made to continue the journey. And so we thought it'd be really great to figure out a way how to help motivate people peer-to-peer to continue the journey and continue to move forward. So Be Strong Family actually developed a Journey to Vitality website, which is a website that allows you not only to sign up and commit to a journey, but then also share the progress of your journey to other people. So say, for instance, I was on the website and I committed to running outside once a week as, my piece for physical domain. What I would be able to do is share with friends and family anytime that I'm out running, so it might be like, oh, it's January in Chicago and it's minus 10 degrees, but I'm committed to my physical vitality and went outside and ran a couple miles this morning, and show a picture maybe of the frozen lakefront if I want to. So it really is a way to share and get people to support you, because more than likely, if I shared a photo of the frozen lakefront and they actually got up and went outside anyways to continue my journey, people are going to be like, wow, that's really great, nice job getting up, etc. And so it gives you some energy and support moving forward. So the website is really a great way to do that. We also thought, when we thought about it, is, this is such a unique concept in the fact that it takes wellness to a whole nother level, having the 6 different domains that are so different from just health and nutrition. What if we were able to look at agencies and corporations and talk about, can this really make a difference in what you do every day at work, right? How can we really motivate your employees to become more holistically healthy? And how can we help to develop an environment where employees are supporting each other as well? So we created the Journey to Vitality program, which is a 6-month corporate wellness program that really goes beyond just fitness and nutrition, but really helps to build a healthier culture, a holistic lifestyle in the organization, which is really important. So the other piece that we wanted to incorporate when we were thinking about doing this is that we want to make it fun, right? Nobody likes to do something that's not fun. Sometimes you're like, I'm going to work, it's not fun, but I'm getting a paycheck as a result. If whatever you commit to isn't fun and it doesn't create a sense of energy, you're not probably going to follow through with it. So we wanted to create that sense of fun in what we did as well. So kind of the basis of this wellness program, we looked at 3 key things. One is we wanted to make sure we used empower and engagement. So we really looked at the teams that people work with, or work families, as we like to call them, and figured out, how we can help people work together. But then also we wanted to really focus on what individuals needed to do. So one of the really nice things I think about this program is if you look at the domains, more than likely there's one of the domains that appeal to someone, that gets people excited. And individuals have the opportunity to pick their own domain that they want to focus on. So they can decide on what is a solution, what's something that I want to work on that's really focused from their own beliefs, their own system. And so we empower them to make their own decision as to where they want to focus. We also wanted to do peer-to-peer support systems. So like I said, there's work families at work. We thought, wouldn't it be great if work families, the people you're working with, encourage and help support you and the decision you made as to where you wanted to engage. And lastly, we really wanted to create a journey under the domains of vitality, which we were able to do. So employees were able to really look at and focus on a journey so that it had a length of time. The goal was to keep moving forward, and to log process so you could actually see that journey, which is really great as well. So the way we decided to do this is to really look at encouraging the corporation as a whole to be part of this. One of the things we know is that in any organization, having the leadership really believe in something and buy into something is really important. So we wanted to make sure that in any organization we bring this to, that there really is that buy-in from the leadership, and that they or some of the leaders really are able to develop a leadership team, which kind of leads the journey to vitality in the corporation. And so the leadership team, like I said, could be leaders. We want employees with lots of energy. We want candidates that are really going to buy into the journey and vitality and role model it as they move forward, which is really important. And so that kind of is the very, very first step of our Journey to Vitality corporate program, is getting the leaders involved. Then the next piece that we wanted to do, like I said, fun is really a key part of this, is to have a launch party, right? Because who doesn't want to go to a party and have fun? And so at that launch party, we looked at we want to give employees the ability to really gauge where they are now and where they are later. So we look at giving them a wellness self-assessment at the very beginning as they walk into the launch party. This is where they really get to hear about their domain. The Vitality Cafe is a great way to get people super excited. So actually experiencing a Journey to Vitality Cafe is part of it. And that allows the employees to get a better sense of what are their domains, what am I really interested in. And then they can actually sign up at that time on the JHP website. Also at that time, they can look at picking their team. So, a lot of times, if you're working together, a team, it brings another piece of energy. So you can work together as your work family team. What are we all going to do? Where do we want to go? Or you could pick a certain domain and say, everyone who's doing the physical domain, let's work together and encourage and support each other to make sure we're meeting our goals. So once again, that peer-to-peer support system continues to flow as we look at creating teams around this process. Once people are signed up, we need to make sure they continue to be engaged, right? And so if you say, sign up on this site, and then we're all done and nobody pays attention, typically what happens, it seems really exciting the first week or two, and then maybe it doesn't continue to be exciting. So we also want to provide some coaching sessions to the corporation. And that's really important. So we meet with the leadership team, we look at the website, we see how the postings goes, how are people doing and meeting their goals, how are the teams doing, are they supporting each other, what are things that you can do at the workplace to encourage that, right? So if it doesn't take off right away, okay, let's figure out a lunch for the whole team to get together and talk about their goals and where they want to go, and really encourage that peer-to-peer support. And then we continue to do this for about 6 months, which seems like a good length of time where people will be energized, engaged. They can actually meet many of their goals. But it doesn't just continue to go on forever and ever. And so we thought it was important that it kind of had a 6-month window. And then what was really important is to recognize what happened. So at the end of this, we have a big celebration and we provide rewards. So, hey, look what you did. You really met that goal of running outside once a week, even in the freezing cold. And look at all the photos. And wow, that's really cool. And if everyone in a team had a goal, maybe the corporation wants to recognize that entire team for encouraging all of them to meet the different goals. So at this time, we really celebrate what they've done, what they've accomplished, and where they've gone. And we also do a post-wellness self-assessment to see, like, what an impact does it make. And I think what's important is the assessment talks about their goals and their journey, but it also talks about their journey with their peers. So has there been a little bit of a difference in how you work with your peers, how you're encouraged by your peers, how you feel about going to work on a day-to-day basis, based on really being able to engage and support each other during this time? And then there's the party, right? So the whole idea is let's have fun, let's celebrate, lots of balloons, lots of food, because you can't have a celebration without food and cake, and just to enjoy the day and the event. And that really is what we're looking at with our, what we call our corporate wellness program. Like I said, what's really great about it is that it allows people to start from where they're at. It doesn't force the, okay, everybody's getting a Fitbit and needs to take this number of steps a day. But instead what it does is say, look at your overall health wellness. Think about what's really important to you. Here are 6 domains that are very different, and choose what works for you to make a real big difference. So that, for all of you, is Journey to Vitality in a very small shell. But hopefully it gives you a sense of where it is and where you want to go. And we have a website that you can check out, which is super exciting as well, that shows a little bit about what people are doing and shares kind of, here's the connection to Journey to Vitality. Any questions?
Beth, I had a quick ad. Also, while Beth was talking, the sheet that she talked about would have the protective factors on it. That sheet was created because one of our agencies wanted to know, how does the Vitality Cafés connect to the parent cafes that they had already been doing? And that sheet was generated specifically because an agency says we don't understand the connection. And that sheet we've been using for a lot of our marketing to help agencies that have already been doing parent cafes to understand the connection. All of those sample questions are questions that come directly from our Journey to Vitality deck. So those cards that she read as samples are actual questions that pertain to the Vitality Domains that are all based on the protective factors. That was my one other comment. And then the other comment is that if people are already doing our parent cafes and they're attending our parent success, our Parent Cafe Success Exchange webinars that we do on the last Friday of the month from 1:30 to 2:30. Our next one is going to be April 27th, talking about lessons learned. The one after that is going to be diversity, and that's going to be May 25th. And then June 29th, we're going to talk about Vitality Cafes the more. We also have a Facebook page called Be Strong Family National Parent Leaders. And if you want to see pictures of cafes, specifically Vitality Cafes, there are some pictures on there on our Facebook page as well. to talk about how people have been decorating and doing other things that center around these Vitality Cafés. Vitality Cafés do have some differences, as is not just the protective factors and the domains that's the difference. There's also some a little bit of setup differences that differ between the Vitality Cafés and the Parent Cafés. So, and as Beth said, if there are any questions, and I want to add those two comments to what Beth had said. Great job, Beth.
Thank you both. I wanted to just ask quickly, you referred to the website. Is that just bestrongfamilies.net, or is there a specific one for Journey to Vitality?
Journey. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
So, Journey to Vitality is journeytovitality.org, and you saw a screenshot of our homepage a little bit on there when you saw the 4 different profiles kind of at the bottom, where the last slide we showed before the questions. On that last slide, you kind of see some featured journeys. There are 4 different journeys that are pertaining to the domains. The first one is working on, I think it's environmental, and then the second one is working on mental and emotional, and the one with the little girl and the dad is talking about financial, and then the one, the last one in the orange is talking about the physical domain. And also the Facebook page isn't open to everyone, but if you, some people are already on that page, on our Facebook page, to be able to connect with us because they have been trained as parent leaders, and they've attended one of our Parent Cafe training institutes as well. And so we're able, you know what I'm saying, to demonstrate there. And so we're building that community of network and engagement there as well, as we are the first company, of course, since we are kicking this off, to do the corporate program that Beth was talking about. We're doing it internally as an organization, as the first one to do it, and we're very, very geeked and excited about that piece of it. And so our staff have buy-in, and you see 4 of our staff kind of on that screenshot of the Journey to Vitality webpage that have started their journey, and it's very exciting to see people come together to talk about what they want to do, what action steps they want to do to move toward their holistic wellness, which is, you know, their domain of vitality. So,
excellent, thank you. So we've got a couple questions that have come in, and I'll encourage others to go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like me to unmute you, or you can type in your question, and Trish or I will read it, but I'll go to the ones that we've gotten so far. Ana Rodriguez asked whether this is available in Spanish, and I will add, and if not, when do you think that might be able to happen?
It is available in Spanish, absolutely. Everything Be Strong does. It is bilingual, so yes, sir, it is available in Spanish. On the back side of the card, there is the Spanish side. On the front side is the English side. So the Vitality Cafe in a box, the deck cards do come in Spanish.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. And then another question came in from Tammy Sandoval in Alaska. She also pointed out that your map didn't have Alaska colored in as having had Parent Cafe training. But then she asked, what is your take on if people were to start using the Vitality Cafes without doing the corporate program and the, you know, the team follow-up on the website kind of thing, but just using the cafes as a standalone? Would you recommend that?
Absolutely. They are 2 different. They are both standalone pieces. The Vitality Cafes are Vitality Cafes, and they can stand alone. The corporate piece is a piece that, and Beth can speak more about this, that when corporations are choosing us, that says, yes, we really want to do your Vitality Wellness Program for our corporate wellness for our employees, that during that time, we're asking and suggesting that they do have a Vitality Cafe with their employees. If that works with each of the Vitality corporate pieces, is custom made. So people can buy the Vitality Cafe in a box decks, and they're on sale now. So they are. We are able to sell those now if people want to start doing their Vitality Cafes without doing the corporate piece. But if you know of a corporation that you think this would really fit for, even if it's your corporation, then please, let Beth know, and she'll be happy to follow up. Any comments, Beth?
Wonderful. Any thoughts, Beth?
No, that's absolutely right. There are two different programs, but if anyone's interested in the corporate or agency program, please let me know. I'm happy to go into more detail about how the program works and the steps. Like I said, it's really a way to take the cafe and extend it beyond kind of a one-time journey and make the journey last a little bit longer.
That's great. And I was actually thinking that these Vitality Cafes could be a way to extend the Parent Cafe experience. I know we often hear about people who, get a cafe going, and by the time they get through the sessions, everyone's like, we're going to stop meeting? This has been fantastic. We just want to keep going. So transitioning that into a Vitality Cafe, or knowing those people would be interested in coming back for more, you could launch a Vitality Cafe, and it could be a nice way to build on it without feeling repetitive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wonderful. We did have one other sort of logistical question. Someone typed in about whether the slides will be available, and they will be posted on the Google site. And if you don't regularly check that, which I would totally understand, you will see the link to it in our Strengthening Families newsletter that goes out once a month. And if you're not getting those, please just send me a message and we will make sure you get them. Any other questions from the audience?
Kailen, while they're forming their questions, hopefully they have some, but while they're coming, piggybacking on what you just said about being able to expand, people that have been, because we have, two different audiences. One audience, they've been doing cafes forever. And when people are thinking about what's next, they're like, oh my goodness, I love the Vitality Cafe. The Vitality Cafes are amazing. I never thought about it. We worked with an agency specifically, and we were talking about, the questions were about financial vitality. And one of the questions was around what were their beliefs around money and where those beliefs come from. And these parents happened to be DCFS involved and were very uncomfortable. But when the conversation got going, they got really excited about, these are some thoughts that they never thought about as it pertained to money, and how money can help them with their resilience, how money can help them, be able to connect in their community to those concrete supports. So they thought about it, wow, and even how money can help them teach that social and emotional competency with the children, about how do we teach our kids how to communicate about money, how to save money, what are we role modeling for our children. And so the question, kind of deep in all kind of spirit about financial. So people that we have been working with prior that have been doing Parent Cafes have reported great enthusiastic excitement about being able to transition to what's next is a Vitality Cafe. We recently in the Midwest did our first Vitality Cafe Training Institute, which we were doing our Parent Cafe. We call them a PCTI, Parent Cafe Training Institute, and we did we've done, oh my God, so many of those. Now we're doing we did our first one and have more scheduled to do the Vitality Cafe Training Institutes, which talk about those differences that people think about and talk about, and that we really have found to be very strategic in moving forward to make sure that people are having very successful and impactful cafes that center around these 6 areas of domain.
Excellent, thank you. We did get another question. Patricia Allen Clark asks about whether you're aware of any interest in Parent Cafés or Vitality Cafés anywhere in Canada. Do you know of folks using it there?
We don't know as of, I'm not aware. We do have a team that does this kind of strategic planning. Are you saying something, Jessie?
Yeah, Melissa, if I could just interject. Hi everyone,
Yes.
My name's Jessie. I'm the Be Strong Families Organizational Advancement Coordinator, and off the top of my head, I know that we've done at least one training in Canada. I believe it was in Alberta. If you want to take another question, I can try to look up the specific agency. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out. Well, I'll take another question while you check that out. And we do have a couple other questions coming in here, which is great. Thanks to everyone who's typing in. Monica Thomas asks if you could describe the interest and participation regarding the topic of protective factors for fathers. And I know you do have a special cafe for that. So maybe you can describe that a little bit.
We do have a dad's cafe, and dad's cafes, I've been facilitating some of our dad cafes, specifically with our child welfare involved population, and those cafes have been really amazing. The dads want to come back. At first, sometimes they're kind of standoffish, but eventually I have not facilitated a dad's cafe where I couldn't get the dads to stop talking. The dads really connected with each other and learned from each other, and they really were excited about Parent Cafe. We have a specific deck that's called Dad Cafe in a Box that we also have for sale that people can buy that are questions created for dads, by dads. And so that is also available. So there is interest in that, the Dad's Cafe specifically, and excitement, not just with child welfare involved families. Our COO and some of our staff have done Dad Cafes in community, and I've heard those have been successful as well. So community dads or, system involved dads, the Dad Cafes, we as an organization have found them to be very exciting and impactful.
Great, thank you. And then the other question that came in, and then we'll go back to Jessie. Oops, I just scrolled past it. Is from Phoenix Asifa asking, is an equity and inclusion lens in part of the formulation of the Parent or Vitality Cafe?
Great question. And that also gives me a little segue. And so we've just, or we are in the midst of creating a different type of cafe called a More Perfect Union, which would speak directly to your question, that talks about equity and inclusion specifically. And we're working on the marketing with that and creating those cafe in a deck questions. And we really are very excited about that, that a More Perfect Union. We've launched it at a conference, and it's been it went over really well to think about how we have those things of equity and inclusion, and specifically it speaks to that. So that cafe series is coming to you soon, and it's called A More Perfect Union. And so we're working on that. While Vitality doesn't specifically speak to that, that other series that we are in the midst of creating, A More Perfect Union cafes, will definitely speak directly to that.
Thank you, Melissa. This is Jessie again. I was able to find the agency. I believe it is called the Fort Macleod Kids First Family Center. It looks like in 2016 we did some trainings with them, and now they're involved with Kailen, actually, with CSSP. So maybe, I'm not sure if Kailen has more information about strengthening families or the Parent Cafés or protective factors in Canada. And then to the equity piece, I just wanted to add that I think so I joined Be Strong Families in September, and diversity and equity and inclusion were pretty much the top factor that I was thinking about when looking for potential employers. And I think one thing that really inspires me about the organization overall, and then in particular the cafe model, is that I think the peer-to-peer aspect and the individual deep self-reflection that Melissa talked about as being foundational to all our cafes, those principles that come from adult learning are also really foundational to equity and diversity, because they really value individual people's experiences and don't assume that professionals are the ones who are coming with all the answers, and thus making it sort of an unequal playing field. So I really feel that the diversity and inclusion piece is present throughout all of our trainings, and I share in Melissa's enthusiasm for our More Perfect Union cafes that are specifically social justice oriented that we'll be having in the coming years.
Thanks, Jessie, for adding.
Yeah, thank you both. This is Kailen. I would also add, I think parent cafes and the community cafes that some other groups use have been a really important tool for equity too, a way for parents to get engaged in these conversations in spaces that some of these parents might not always have felt welcome and valued. I think the cafe is an excellent model for leveling the playing field for everyone to feel welcome and respected and valued and have a chance for their strengths to be appreciated, and particularly for families that don't get that sense from some of the other systems they are involved with. I think the cafes have been a really vital tool.
Oh, Kailen, I have one more comment about that.
Yeah.
Quickly, when we do cafes, our motto at Be Strong is that we don't have people that are sitting outside of the cafe looking like a fishbowl, that everyone in the room has to participate. And even if they are a caregiver or they are a service provider, we invite them to come into the room in their caregiver role, right? So that we're bringing everyone in the space, right, to bring their own wisdom. And so a service provider would be asked to come to the table, participate in the cafe, and on several occasions when that hasn't been the case, then our Be Strong family do ask staff to leave. You know, they get very much so invited. We want them to be included. But if they are sitting back saying, I must work on paperwork, or I want to sit back here in the corner, then because of our policy that we want to make sure that people are included and that we come in as community, that then they are asked if they would just step out and continue their work somewhere else other than in the cafe space. So I just want to share that real quick.
Thank you. Okay, well, we're almost at the end of our time. I appreciate everyone who typed in questions, and of course, many, many thanks to Melissa and Beth for preparing all these slides and sharing this work with us. I think it's a really exciting development and a nice additional piece for people to add into their Strengthening Families efforts and broadening our view of well-being and how we can support families in that. So thank you very much. I'm putting our contact information up on the screen for anyone who wants to reach out to any of us who were on the call, or to Martha, who was here in spirit. We look forward to hearing from you and talking to you again next month. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.